Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. We are on location at the Fort Wayne Coliseum. It is just before Winter Jam 2016, and we are joined by Matthew West.
Hey, good to see you.
Good
Thanks
to
for having me today.
Well, thanks for taking time on a busy day to hang out with us for a bit.
Well, I'm excited. It's great to be in Fort Wayne, the home of Sweetwater.
Exactly.
And we're excited to play tonight. We've been
watching
oohing
the line
and eyeing. The line outside is crazy, so there's a great excitement. They're probably just excited to get indoors.
Where it's warm, right?
So,
yeah, the line's amazing. It goes all the way across the park.
It's very exciting. That never gets old seeing that. You know? I love singing for people, and I've been singing for people since nobody was showing up. So now I'm glad that people show up.
Yeah, yeah. So I understand you're a Sweetwater customer.
I am.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll be playing, how many guitars am I playing from Sweetwater tonight? I think 3.
Nice.
My favorite is a Keb Mo signature. It's like a L00 Gibson acoustic. I love it.
Nice.
It feels great. And it was actually being in Fort Wayne, I was like, my money was burning a hole in my pocket because I wanted to go over and buy some more stuff. So, but yeah, I bought recording equipment. I've bought guitars, microphones, things like that. And Sweetwater's always been great.
Awesome.
Their service is amazing too. You know, in terms of just the attention to detail and the personal attention I've received has been great. My whole band could say the same. So
awesome.
Yeah. So you're getting our money.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Hey, it's great. It's a great product. You know, great products, great prices, and really great people. You know, checking in on me. Hey, how's that guitar working out for you? Hey, and you know, delivers on time, safely, all those good things. So, I'm like I said, I'm itching for a new guitar.
Right.
And let's see if the wife will give me the thumbs up.
Right. We appreciate all those kind words. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it's a great partnership to be able to have an outlet like Sweetwater when I'm looking for a piece of gear to go, hey, what do y'all got? Like, I've literally sent an email to my rep just to be like, here's what I need today. Like, can you give me some recommendations? And a lot of times they'll give me a recommendation that's something I didn't even realize was a better option than what I was looking at, speakers or this or that, you know, so it's good. Look forward to continuing to work with Sweetwater in the years to come.
Us too. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
You've done Winter Jam before.
I have, actually. This was my 3rd time being invited on Winter Jam. It's been interesting because Winter Jam has represented some different phases of my career. You know, the first time on Winter Jam was at the very beginning of my career. I had one song out, and so I think they gave me a performance slot of like 90 seconds, right? And then the second time was a few years after that. It was about 5 years ago. And I'd started to have some songs, so the crowd was singing the songs along with me. And now this is the first time being invited as one of the headliners of Winter Jam. So it's a really special kind of full circle for me coming back to be a part of this tour in this capacity.
Right, that's great. So you're out for about 4 months with the tour?
Yeah, roughly. We do 48 cities from January 1st until April 1st.
Right.
And then right after that, I jump right into another tour for 20 more cities. So we're doing roughly 70 shows in the first 5 months of the year. So I'm ready. I'll be ready to find a chair on the beach somewhere.
Right. Well, you're going to the Caribbean, right? You got a cruise coming later?
Yeah, that's right. That needs to come sooner.
So, tell us about the cruise. What's happening with that?
Well, you know, it's been kind of fun. You know, you're always looking for different ways to connect and engage with the people that are connecting and engaging with your music, you know. And social media can only go so deep. And so what's been fun is, you know, my songs are inspired by people's stories. And that's become just a thing that I do now, where people have the opportunity to actually write to me and tell me their story. And then it's those people's stories that are inspiring the songs that I write now. I've collected close to 50,000 stories now. And so one of the ways that we've kind of noticed a connection happening with our fan base is just people wanting to go deeper in discovering their story and learning how to tell their story. And so we thought, well, what better way to do that than to combine a vacation with, you know, a physical vacation with a spiritual vacation as well.
Right.
And so we're taking a cruise to the Caribbean. It's called the Storytellers Cruise. And on that, you know, we kind of, every night there's concerts and there's, you know, devotional time during the day where people can grow deeper in their faith and get to know their story a little bit better. I think a lot of times, you know, many people would agree that their lives get going so fast that they rarely hit the pause button just to stop, take inventory of their life, and really see, hey, is my story going the way it's supposed to go? Am I heading where God wants me to be? And so that's a challenge for me, to hit that pause button. And sometimes, it takes a trip like that cruise just to kind of hit the pause button for a week, think about life, and grow in our faith, and get revived and refreshed.
All right, that's awesome. And enjoy some sunshine and
of course,
great music and
and
all that good
food
stuff.
and ice cream and all that good stuff. But I was trying to be like deeply spiritual.
But it's all part of it, right? It's all part of the story.
It's all part of the story, yeah.
Right, exactly.
But it's fun. We did one a couple years ago to Alaska, and we had about 300 people join us, and boy, that was a life-changing event, not just for them, but for me too. One thing that I love is, growing up, my favorite music artists, I would notice that like the more popular they got, the less contact that a fan, myself, could have with them. And so my goal in my career was, if I ever get really popular, or if my success or fame grows, I want to like stay in contact with the people that are listening to my music as I grow and as they grow with me. And so collecting their stories has become a real way for, it's almost like reversing the process. Like the more success we've had, the more contact we've also had. And so sometimes taking trips like that is another way for us to just do life together, as opposed to it being like an artist and a listener, or a recording artist and a fan. It's this kind of like, hey, my music is for you, it's inspired by you, and so let's do this together.
Right, very cool,
Yeah.
very cool. So speaking of stories, you're from the Chicago area.
I am.
Were you always into music?
Well, I've always been into music, yes. I grew up, my dad's a preacher, and so I'm a preacher's kid. I'm still in recovery for that, by the way. But my dad doesn't like that joke.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I grew up in my mom and my dad's church, and music is a real integral part of the church, church life, church service. And so, I grew up all around my dad's, all around the sanctuary and the church. I was always doing chores around there, and I'd sneak into the sanctuary, and I would start writing my first songs at the piano. I was more interested and passionate, to be honest with you, about sports. Sports that was my love language. That was it for me.
Right.
So all the way through high school, up until the end of my high school time, my focus was sports, and then girls, probably, and then music.
Gotta have priorities.
Yeah, gotta have your priorities right. And so when I realized that I wasn't gonna go on to be a professional baseball player, my parents were, really encouraging me to say, hey, you really got to think about what God has planned for your life. Have you asked Him? Do you know what it is? Have you looked around to see what you're passionate about besides baseball? Because every kid's passionate about baseball growing up. And so that's when music really began to come front and center, take center stage for me. I really had recognized that throughout my childhood, even people had been in my path, encouraging me to recognize some gifts that I had with music, whether it was learning how to play something by ear, or singing or acting or things like that. And so that really started to click for me. The light bulb went on, and I thought, well, maybe music is it. And so I auditioned at a couple universities for a music scholarship, and I got one, and that kind of set my feet on the path that has really led to where I am today, going to college, studying music for 4 years at a conservatory, and really discovering a passion for songwriting. That was the hook that forever linked me to music, was songwriting. That was my passion, and still is today.
So were you, at the conservatory, were you studying an instrument, or were you studying composition, or what were you working on?
Yeah, I went to Millikan University in Decatur, Illinois, go Big Blue, and so my degree was a bachelor's in music degree. It was a commercial music degree with an emphasis on vocal performance. But while I was there, part of your training, part of your education is piano. You're taking these mandatory classes, and you talk about a crash course. 4 years at a conservatory. A kid like me who never had played an instrument before, I was really coming in behind the 8 ball. A lot of the other students were very proficient at saying the word proficient, but they were very good at notating. They could sight read. They knew how to play instruments and things like that. And I was coming in just this kid who knew how to sing like Boys to Men or whatever. And so I really had my work cut out for me. I took, piano, I took guitar. I sat in my dorm room and locked myself in there and learned how to play guitar and began writing songs. But that was my, that was a real furnace of transformation. 4 years of college, surrounded by people who are passionate about music, great professors. Matter of fact, one of my former professors, his son, who's younger than me and came long after me, is now in my band playing guitar.
That's awesome.
So pretty full circle moment. So I've actually got 2 band members that all went to my alma mater. So I'm working to get the entire band, former alma mater.
Millikan band.
Yeah.
That's great. So as a songwriter, sometimes songwriters and instrumentalists are concerned about studying theory and some of those things and thinking it'll change the way they write. How did that impact your approach to songwriting?
Well, it's interesting. I'll just be honest, theory never came easy to me. And part of it was because my early childhood was so, I just leaned heavily on this, my ability to kind of figure it out.
Right.
And there's a simplicity to that I think is also required when you're approaching songwriting. You're not needing, you're needing to feel things out more than think things through. And that's an important ingredient in songwriting. And so, throughout college, I struggled. I struggled through my theory classes. I struggled through my sight reading classes and some of the more technical aspects of that classical education I was getting. I frustrated my professors. They frustrated me, and I had to really lean on my peers to help me in those extra studying and crash courses. But I remember one time our assignment was to make a horn arrangement, and I had to notate it by hand, and it was just like, I would have rather had 10 root canals, But the thing was, I knew what I was hearing, but it was just a challenge for me to put that down in a technically acceptable way. And so, honestly, when I go to write songs today, that aspect of my education really doesn't come into effect when I'm writing my songs. Now, in indirect ways, it does, because it, the more you learn, the more you know, the deeper that well is of knowledge and experience, and it stretched me in different ways to maybe be more mindful of just, instead of picking a melody out of thin air, it's like to kind of know what you're doing and different chord changes that you maybe wouldn't have thought of before, things like that. But for the most part, I'm a blue-collar songwriter. Very much, I'm maybe less concerned about voicings and more concerned about the heartbeat of the song and the lyric. Right. And so I'll never be accused of my head getting in the way of my heart when I'm writing songs. Some of my other friends had the opposite challenge. They learned from a very technical place, and so they had a hard time, when there's not sheet music in front of them, how to just create. That was never my problem. I could always create. I had a hard time playing what was on the sheet.
Right. So when you're conceiving the song, when it first comes to you, do you picture the finished production, or does it come to you as a chord progression or lyrics, or how do you get started?
Conceptually is that tends to be my my go-to. I think if I have any strength, it's that I'm a good assignment writer. And what I mean by that is, if you were to give me a script to a movie, I think that's one of the reasons why collecting people's stories has become a real sweet spot for me. Is it's almost like every person's story it's like a script.
Right.
It's like an assignment. Or if I'm told, hey, we need I write songs for other artists as well, and they'll say, hey, so-and-so's looking for an up-tempo song that kind of has this feel, this and that, and like, man, I can go for that, I can do that. And so a lot of times it is conceptually, like if I've got an idea, it might start from a title, and then I'll begin to unpack what that song could be about, maybe a cool, clever turn the lyric can make, things like that. And when I'm on tour, it's kind of my idea gathering season, It's like I don't always have the energy to see a song through to the finish while I'm on tour, because I'm doing interviews, I'm doing performances, I'm on radio interviews during the day, and just lots of things
Busy,
going on.
yeah.
When the show's over, you're wiped out, you go to bed, you wake up tomorrow and you repeat. But on my phone, I'm gathering one lyric or title or melody idea after another. And after that tour is over, I take a deep breath, and then I go in and I begin to see those ideas through to fruition. But usually it's not because I have this cool musical idea. It's got to have, it might be a musical idea, but it's got to have some lyrical teeth to it. I got to know that it's going to say something before I'm really going to dive in to see that song through to completion.
Right. So you take these ideas then, the germs of the ideas, and develop them. When does the music part of it come into it? After the lyrics are finished, or is it do you co-develop them?
Yeah, that becomes a pretty simultaneous thing, because, you know, the marriage between lyric and melody is so crucial to the success of a song.
Right.
Right? So you're, the theme of your lyric, the feel of your lyric, it has to, it needs something to carry it successfully, to evoke the emotion that you want the lyric to do. So that melody, that becomes the, you know, the Uber for the lyric, right? I mean, it becomes the driver.
Right.
And so once I get that sort of title idea, I begin writing. I rarely will write lyrics completely separate from a music direction in mind. I write a lot in my journal. There's no doubt about that. I'm always writing apart from it, but I'm rarely writing like a poem that then becomes a piece of music. It's okay, I got this title, I got this idea. What does this feel like to me? Or what's a groove that I need in my live show that matches up with this concept?
Right.
And then the music and the lyric begin to form together from the word go.
Right. You mentioned writing for other artists, and there's people like Diamond Rio, Rascal Flatts, Ray Cyrus, and you've had quite a bit of success in the mainstream as well as the Christian markets. When you're writing for another artist, and you mentioned they'll come to you and say this artist is looking for something, how do you have to tailor that approach for writing for another artist?
Well, you know, tailoring is the right word. You know, in terms of you sort of check your own agenda at the door. That's been an interesting aspect of my career. And I'm thankful that, like, early in my career, I couldn't get arrested. I couldn't get a record deal, but I did get a songwriting deal. And for 3 years, while I toured independently, I played college campuses half the year. Then I would be home writing songs behind the scenes. And I didn't even realize at the time that there was this whole world of, you know, these songwriters are the ones that are driving Nashville. You know, they're behind the scenes writing songs for artists that don't write their own songs, or with the artist to help them, because the artist might not be a true songwriter in the sense. And so I had the chance to really hone my skills, thinking, you know, kind of putting on a different hat depending on what room I'm in. So I think the biggest thing is to realize when I'm with, let's say I'm with Casting Crowns, okay, well, I know what their strengths are. Once you start to get in that room, you realize, okay, this guy, he's got amazing ideas. So he's not needing me to come up with, hey, I got this song idea. It's not about that. It's about realizing, okay, but he doesn't play an instrument as much. He might have some idea of melody, but wow, there's 3 ideas in this one idea. So it's about kind of helping carve out, but he's bringing the guts of it, right? So he's bringing this amazing piece of wood, and then my job is to kind of help carve it out. And sometimes you wind up carving so much that you realize, well, there were 3 songs in that one idea that you brought. And that's my job in that room. And other times it'll be my room to be the driver on the melody side. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. Some people ask me, like, do you ever wish you had kept a song for yourself that you wrote for somebody else? And what's interesting is I don't. It's never happened once. I mean, there might be a song that, like, ooh, that song did really well. Maybe I should have. But what happens is my mindset is I'm not thinking about my own record that day. When I'm writing with that artist or for that artist, I'm thinking 100% about them. I'm there to serve them. Right? So I'm kind of like I was talking about the melody being the Uber for the lyric. I'm kind of, you know, I'm the taxi driver. I'm part of their process, but I'm not the heart of their process. Right. And so it's a very different process when I'm writing for them. And then when I turn to write my own music, that is its own challenge, because what happened in the beginning of my career is I spent so much time writing for other people that when I went to make my own record, I didn't know who I was anymore. Now, you come full circle in that and realize, like, okay, I'm an eclectic writer, and that's okay. My songs aren't going to be one-dimensional. You're not going to hear one of my songs and think, okay, I've heard the whole record. Sometimes that's a disadvantage because, you know, I think our world kind of just likes something that's more easily palatable. Like, okay, I can put him in this box because I've heard this one song, so I know it. My records aren't like that, and a lot of that is attributed to the fact that I've spent so much time writing so many different styles. Right. The challenge for me has been to carve out a unique creative process for myself. So for me, when I'm writing for my record, I do it completely different than I would for anybody else. I go book this lady's cabin in the middle of nowhere. I take my guitar and my piano. I sit for hours in solitude. I read people's stories. I do all these things different so that my songs will have their own, you know, sort of carved out identity, uniquely mine.
Right, right. Then when you would finish a song, when you have it written and you're about to take it into the studio, do you have a vision for the production that song will have, or how complete is that vision?
Yeah, you know, I've never been one of those people that needs to, you know, thump myself on the chest and say, I produce my own records, because I'm a firm believer in collaboration. I'm a firm believer of finding those people who have strengths where you have weaknesses, and then making a better record than you could make on your own. Mm-hmm. So that's whether it's songwriting, you know. I never want to be too proud to say, hey, I'm writing everything myself. It's like, well, it has developed that way over the last couple records, where most of the songs have been written by myself. But I'll be the first one to say, man, I think I know who could take this song to the next level and help me with this, or whatever. Same thing with production. Now, I have a very clear vision, but I'm not the guy who likes to sit behind the console. I like to be at 30,000 feet. I like to arrange background vocals. I like to come up with ideas, but I'm also not the guy, like, my producer will beg me to play guitar on my record because he likes that personal touch, but I'll beg not to play guitar on my record because there's a guitar player that I know who's 100 times better, that all the time I spent writing songs, they were practicing guitar. Right. They've got the right gear, they've got the right tones, they've got the right feel. Like, I want my record to sound better than just me playing guitar, right? Sure. And so, so I'm very involved in the production process, but I'm also, I'd like to think that I'm hands-off when the right people are involved, to let them create and be in their sweet spot. So I've had the same producer that I've worked with on the last 3 records, and he and I have built such a trust where early in my career, I would go and produce a full demo of a song I had written before I ever let my label hear it, before I ever let a producer hear it, because I felt like they're not gonna be able to just hear an acoustic, like if I sat and played it for them, they wouldn't catch the vision that I have in my head. Right. So I didn't trust. But this producer I've been working with, he's the first guy that I've been able to go like, you know what, I just wrote this song today. What do you think? Mm-hmm. And I'll play it in its, bare bones. And if you could hear the first version of a song to where this particular producer has taken certain songs, it's like, it makes me smile, because I'm like, that's what it's about. It's about being able to trust somebody to catch your creative vision enough. You're so in sync that that they know how to take it where it needs to go. And then I get to speak into it along the way, but I get to focus on what I should be focusing on, which is songwriting, mm-hmm. right? I think a lot of times people get out of their lane and think, well, I gotta do this and I gotta do this. No, let the producer be the producer. I'm gonna be the songwriter. I'll also be a producer, because every artist should be co-producing their own project and speaking into it. You don't want to just be a voice in front of a microphone, you know. So, so that's kind of the process for
Right. Some artists, it seems like, have trouble letting go of that. Yeah. The song gets precious to them, and it's hard to turn that over to somebody else.
Yeah, I've probably been in that boat at times in the past, but I think it does come back to that word trust. You know, when you find a creative partner, which a producer really is. I mean, it's like an extra band member. You know, when you've got that producer and you've seen them take a song to the finish line, and it was in a way where you were like high-fiving, right? That gets you more comfortable to be able to go, you know what? I can trust that you're going to be able to hear not what this song is, but what this song could be. And it makes it a little easier to take your hands off the wheel. If there's no trust, which I've been in the room with producers in the past before, where just for whatever reason, I just didn't trust their process, and that can be just an absolute killer for the process. It makes it not enjoyable. You're worrying at every step because it is your baby, right? And especially if you have a song where you're like, man, I think this song could be big, you know? Because not every song on your record is designed to be that big radio song, right? I want those intimate singer-songwriter songs. What I'm looking for, though, when I'm making a record, is somebody who's gonna care just as much about that acoustic moment on your record that'll never see the light of day at radio as they do the big radio singles.
Right.
And that's, you know, sometimes in my career I've seen where they'll focus on these songs and then these other songs. You can kind of listen when you hear certain records and you're like, it kind of feels like they just phoned it in on tracks 7 through 10 or whatever.
Right.
And I don't want to phone anything in. I want to spend just as much time and attention on those late album tracks as I do the big single, or the one we hope will be the big single. And so that's where trust is found, when you see somebody who's like treating every song as their own labor of love, as if they had written it.
Right.
That's when you're able to sort of let go of the baby and know that it's going to be, you know, taken to the right place.
Right, right. So what about when you have to translate that song from the studio production to the stage? How do you go about the process of kind of redesigning in some cases, or building the production so it works?
Well, I do that in varying forms. There are certain songs that I'm writing that I'm putting on a record, and I can tell already this particular song I'm writing, like there's a song on my record now called "Oh Me of Little Faith," and it's like, I think it's my favorite on the record. It's one that'll never be a single. It's that singer-songwriter moment, right? It's what I loved growing up. It's James Taylor, you know. And writing that song and recording it, like, I already knew, like, if I ever play this song live, it's just gonna be me and guitar. And so you sort of approach the production that way, knowing, like, this is never gonna be a big old thing. I'm not gonna use the track stems and things like that. But reimagining our songs for the live stage has gotten a lot easier, because making my records, I'm thinking about my live show a lot earlier in the process than I ever have. And so the transition has been a lot more seamless. And what I mean by that is, at a certain stage in your career, you start going, all right, I never want to cover the same ground twice, musically or lyrically, tempo-wise, right? Some of it's unavoidable, but I want to go to new places. And so when I'm writing songs now, it's literally like, I've done 150 dates in a year, and I've come off the road going, man, I'm really missing like this thing, or I'm missing this tempo in my set, or man, I'm afraid I'm gonna get too ballad heavy if I, right? And so some of the writing process gets steered in the direction of like, what's gonna actually impact my live show? And at a certain point in your career too, you've got all these different songs that you have to play because they've been on the radio and that's what people are coming to hear. So if you're gonna add a new song to the set, it's like, it's gotta fill a really functional role, stylistically or message-wise. And so those are all things that go into it, but it's been cool to kind of be thinking and be mindful of my live show all through the writing and recording process. We start building our track stems, because you know most bands play to some album tracks, and so we start building those pretty early in the process while I'm still making the record. One of my band members is just a tremendous young writer, programmer, producer in his own right, and he's kind of like track central, and so he can help sort of. He was hired to do a lot of programming on my latest record. And so that process happens pretty quickly. We're like, hey, the title cut from the album, Live Forever, it's gonna kick off the whole show. So he's building a track, maybe building a new intro to the show, using the tracks from one of the songs in the album. And a lot of it's like remixed kind of stuff that you're just building to try to create a seamless show.
Right, right. So when you're looking for someone like that, or for a member for your band, what do you look for in those musicians?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, it's funny because I think it was 2 years ago, we were going through a transitional season. One of my guitar players went on to play for Johnny Lang. My drummer decided he wanted to go get his master's in finance. And now he's probably gonna be, you know, giving me a loan someday. And just through, another of my band members went on to be a full-time songwriter and producer, just got a Lady Antebellum cut, and so guys move on,
sure.
You know. But one of the things that I've been very fortunate to have is being a solo artist, you're not restricted by the limitations of, let's say a band just formed, you know, out of high school, and maybe there's a couple guys that are not as strong on their instrument.
Right.
But they're part of the band, you know? And that happens a lot. There's a lot of bands that, you know, technically they may not be the greatest players, but it's what they create together that works. Well, so for a solo artist, I can have auditions, you know?
Right.
I can find guys and I can, you know, hire some great players. But I'll tell you, when it comes to your live show, simply being like a great player or simply having great tones, that's just not enough anymore. And it's certainly not enough when it comes to the kind of live show that we're trying to create and what we're about to perform tonight at Fort Wayne. We want to create a live show that is not boring.
Right.
It's not maybe your typical singer-songwriter. And I want to create a live show where it's not like, even though it's Matthew West, I don't want it to be the lead singer and then all these guys in the shadows. Like, it's about creating a band feel and creating a really dynamic live show with guys that are not scared to grow as performers as well as in their proficiency with their instrument. Mm-hmm. And so in holding auditions, those were things I was looking for. Like, you know, when a guy came in and didn't just play the parts, you know, we gave them songs to learn. They came in, when a guy comes in and he learned the background vocals and crushed it, right? Then I'm like, all right. So and when he comes into audition and doesn't play like he's in a rehearsal hall, but plays like he's in Carnegie Hall, that's when I was like, all right, this guy came to play. He's serious. And so I'm looking for that. I'm looking for guys on a personality level that aren't afraid to be a showman as well. And not a showman in any sort of artificial way, but like, I know you love playing your instrument, but how do you display how much you love what you're doing in that moment? I've always felt like, you know, why do people love a Bruce Springsteen show? It's like, well, nobody's having more fun at Bruce Springsteen's show than Bruce Springsteen. Nobody.
Right.
He's having the most fun in the whole arena. And people feed off of that, right? That's why he can get up and play, you know, the most random set list he would want to play. He could be in Memphis and be like, I'm going to play 6 Elvis songs tonight. And he'd be having a blast, and the crowd would go nuts, even if they didn't hear Born to Run. And so I want, you know, I talk to my band about that a lot. Like, hey, we get to do this tonight. We get to play in this arena tonight. Holy cow. Or wherever we're playing, we get to do this. So let our gratitude show in the form of like how much we love what we're doing in that moment. And I hope that comes through in my performance, and I hope my band feeds off of me. But I also need band members that I can feed off of as well. And that's what I'm looking for.
Right, right. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Man.
So what about advice for songwriters? Somebody who wants to get rolling and take their ideas to finish songs?
Well, you know, when it comes to, you know, I think the advice I would give to a songwriter would maybe start in the form of encouragement. And really encouragement to look at my own journey. And what I would say to the songwriters, while some gifts might be, you know, you know, because I think sometimes music or skills of music, they get glorified to be like, oh, he's just got the gift, or he's just, oh man, it's just in him. It's just in him. And I think there's an element to that, but I'm living proof that while you may start with maybe a greater amount of blessing or gift to do a certain thing, like anything, I think it can be learned and developed. And for me, that's my story. It's going to Barnes and Nobles, it's buying, you know, Songwriting for Dummies or whatever, going to this section that I didn't even know existed, just checking it out and finding these books that talked about creative writing and songwriting, and literally reading books and bookmarking chapters. And then when they said to go try this exercise, I went and tried it. And it was trial and error, but it was very much like, you don't get muscles until you go to the gym, and you don't go to the gym just once. You don't go to the gym when you feel like it. You go even when you don't feel like it.
Right.
Same is true for songwriting. You write a song today when you don't feel like it. And I would go as far as to say is the days you don't feel like it are the days you need to dig in even more, because those are the days that you're going to stretch yourself the most. Those are the days that you're going to grow stronger, and you might be surprised to write your best stuff on the days that you didn't think you had anything. Right. And so that's the biggest advice I think I could give, is just the encouragement that, hey, you might start with this amount of talent, but it's about what you do with that talent. It's about how hard you work at that talent. When I talk to songwriters and they're like, man, I just, you know, when I feel it, I go and write. And it's like, well, how often do you feel this epiphany? It's like, well, maybe once every 3 months or something. It's like, all right, well, you're going to write 4 songs that year. You know, for me, while you wait for that epiphany, I'm going to write 100 songs. And I got a good feeling that by song 100, I'm going to be writing better stuff than I did at song 20. And that's just, you know, and I'm not saying that quantity is over quality. I'm not saying that, because some writers, some great writers, they might write only 12 songs in a year. But there is power in repetition. There's strength to be gained in repetition, and you just keep going back to that well. And I would also say, man, surrounding yourself, you know, with people. I had a publisher tell me once, you know, always make sure that you're getting in the room and writing with people that are better than you, which is easier said than done, because guess what, those writers that are better than you, guess what advice they're being given? Right. Write with somebody who's better than you. Right. And so what I would do was take advantage of any one of those writers who just decided to go, you know what, I'm going to have mercy on this kid. Or I'm going to take a day off from finding somebody better than me, and I'm going to hang with Matthew West today. And they would pour into me, and man, I would try to step up my game and bring my A game to that writer who I look up to, impress them, bring my best ideas to them, see what they thought, and maybe get another day with them, you know? And so a lot of my growth has come from repetition, but also getting in the room with people that have made me grow. And then the last thing I would say is just, you mentioned like bringing a song to completion. I think that's probably a great struggle for a lot of writers. You know, they might be great starters, but they're not good closers, you know. And I mean, to steal that baseball analogy, which was my first love, you know, it's like somehow as a songwriter, you're not given the luxury that a Major League Baseball pitcher is given. You know, nowadays, a starting pitcher comes out and he's expected maybe throw 5 innings, right? But then they go to the bullpen and they bring in the lefty, and he gets to come in and throw fireballs for 2 innings and they win the game or whatever. And as a songwriter, you have to develop not one or the other, but you got to develop the ability to start strong, but then also stick it out and close strong. And that can only come from, again, from repetition, from daring to drive yourself crazy. For me, the best way that I came to a point where I was able to close on a song was to go to the cabin and lock myself in there and literally have a mental war sometimes where I'm talking to myself by the end of it. And I'm going for a run because I'm so mad, and then I come back and I finish it out. But that's a big thing, is not quitting and turning off your phone and turning off your mobile devices and forcing yourself and learning that discipline of like, I'm gonna take this song to the end. In Nashville, a lot of people get a bailout where they lean on a co-writer as a crutch. One of my publishers always encouraged me, hey, co-writing and collaboration is important, but you have it in you to write a song by yourself, and you'll be better for your collaborations and your co-writers if you commit time every year or every month to say, I'm gonna write X amount of songs by myself. Now, they may not be your best songs, but there's something about developing that craft. And it's funny, because that advice that publisher gave to me, he didn't know how much I was gonna run with it. I went and I booked that cabin, and I sat there by myself, not with 12 of my favorite co-writers. It was up to me to make a record. And you know what? Like, some of my best stuff wound up coming out of those seasons, because I stuck it out, I went crazy, a little bit at least, but I stayed there long enough to listen to where the song needed to go. I didn't have a crutch to lean on. It was up to me. And I think that's an important craft to learn as a writer. It's one thing to start and have the big idea, but you know, there's very few people that ever bring things to completion in life in general. Songwriting is that rare time where you get a gratification like few other things can when you see that song get finished.
Right, right. And you have to be willing to not have a great song come out of it too.
Yeah.
If you're going to write the 100 songs, probably all 100 of them aren't going to be spectacular.
Well, and the neat thing about that is, as you grow and mature, you'll get a sense for a song that probably isn't worth finishing, and you'll move on quicker too. And so you just kind of get this discernment, you know. Now there's going to be times too where you can't tell for yourself. I mean, I think this is something special, but I can't tell. Well, then do you have people around you, like the producer I was describing earlier, who can listen and go, dude, what are you not finishing? Go finish that one. That one's special. But you maybe are too far inside. You know, that's part of the creative process too. You need to find people around you whose opinion you value, because you get so far inside your process. And music and songwriting it's confidence and insecurity and insanity and vulnerability all like converging under this one piece of music, you know? And those are pretty volatile things to be thrown in the same pot, you know? And so sometimes you can get so wrapped up in that where you just don't know which way is up. Towards the end of me making a record, that's where I'm at. I'm at 1 minute, I'm like, this is the greatest record in the history of the world. This is better than the Beatles. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, this record is crap. Like, there's not a single good song on this record. And when you're at that place, you know you're vulnerable. But you also need people to say, hey, no, you got something good here. Or hey, this needs to be strengthened here. You know, go take another stab at it, you know?
Right.
But yeah, it is part of that process of, you know, learning how to close and learning when a song is worth finishing.
All right, great advice, great inspiration.
I hope so. I'm still
Appreciate it.
figuring it out myself, but I do love talking about it. I'm passionate about speaking to songwriters too, and I've had people be a champion for me. And so one of the things at this stage of my career is like, I want to be a champion for other songwriters as well, because I was in line to go to shows like this. Now I get to do shows like this. Well, who's in line now who maybe is going to be the one who I'm bringing my kids to see in concert? And that's pretty cool to think about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And thanks for taking time today. I know it's busy. I just heard the crowd yelling down. They're getting ready for the show. So
it's good.
I don't want to tie you up too much longer.
No, this gets me fired up. We're going to have a great time tonight. And I'm just, I told my band to just feel like I'm far enough along into my career now where I think I have more gratitude than I have in the past, you know? You just, you spend so much of your career like just clawing and scraping and just feverishly going, panicking, as if it's like, because you know, it's like every artist is like, I got one shot. You know, it's like the Eminem song. This is your one shot, you know? And so I think I don't know, I'm just at a point in my career where I'm still clawing, I'm still scraping, I'm still working, but I'm grateful for the chance to stand up in front of people tonight. And the fact that they sing along with me, or that some of those are here to hear my songs, is like, holy cow, man.
It's awesome.
It's pretty awesome. So it just encourages me to go back and keep doing it.
Wonderful.
You know? Go write some more songs.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, man.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Real
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you.
I'm Mitch Gallagher. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute.